She don't care what you think. Granniopteryx, granniopteryx. She knows the truth, she's linking every link.
Hello. Well, there's been a lot of faux moral outrage about Angela Rayner, who's shelled out £800,000 for her third home, according to the Daily Mail. And then they run a big article about it. They show the nice, discreet terrace that actually overlooks the sea, so far as I know, which is nice. And then a picture of Angela Rayner not looking terribly elegant, but there are worse. There's one in the Independent, which I'll show you, which does not show her in her best light. But then all of us would look dreadful when caught the right way by a photographer, or the wrong way, depending on your point of view. And then this is a picture of, I don't know whether that's the inside of her flat or one of the flats that are available to be sold. But anyway, yeah, they're quite nice. They look to be very spacious. And here, there's this room here has these sort of big double doors. So you've got a hallway and then a big double entrance to the sitting room. So you can have lots of guests, you know, that's what the idea is, that they can circulate. And then you're not sort of winding your way through little doors all the time. And then we have Angela Rayner here, and believe me, a good bra would do her a lot of favours in this outfit. I mean, there are some outfits where you really should be wearing something with sleeves, aren't there? OK, let's carry on, and here's some more pictures of the flat. So they're just calculated there to make anyone who's struggling for a home or living in a bedsit or trying to wonder where your next money is coming from to see you to the end of the week, this would tend to... Somebody at the door, just a minute.
A few moments later.
Absolutely nobody there. I don't know what my dog was barking about. And now I don't remember where I was. Something to do... Yeah, probably people feeling jealous about this nice flat. And let's see what it says here. Shadow Housing Secretary James Cleverly accused Ms Rayner of refusing to answer parliamentary questions about her living arrangements. Angela Rayner is responsible for housing policy, yet she won't even be straight about her own, he said. Time and again she's been asked to declare exactly what property she owns and where she pays council tax. And time and again, she's dodged those questions. All right, so that's the Daily Mail. And then you get the Independent with this. Criticising Angela Rayner for buying a second home is the worst kind of snobbery. And here you see the difference between what we here in Britain call champagne socialists. I think there's another name for it in American slang. But yeah, they all want second homes or have second homes one way or another. And the Daily Mail, which has its own hypocrisy, by the way. I remember how they took photos of Tommy Robinson on holiday, same sort of thing. So they are not exactly my idea of people who can talk morals, but they come up with the jealousy angle. Now, what does the Independent say? It's rather a nicely written article, by the way. Flick Everett. I suppose she's Felicity. But Flick is... I've heard that used before for Felicity. And Felicity is such a terribly upper crust name, I can understand why she's changed it to Flick for the Independent. Anyway, there's this awful woman, you might know her, she's really common, very strong northern accent, grew up in some dump called Stockport. She vapes while she's exercising, she flashes her knickers at male colleagues, she's tattooed. She had a thing with a married man, brought her own formal council house that she's no right to own. She became a grandmother at 37. Everyone decent is shocked and appalled by her. Well, the fact is that I'm sure that the only people who are really shocked and appalled by Angela Rayner are the sort of people with whom Flick Everett socialises, but they don't like to say it. So they don't. On the other hand, they do publish this photograph of Angela Rayner, which is just about the least flattering photograph that anyone could show of anyone. It's just awful. And yeah, Angela Rayner has the dress sense of a slapper. I mean, you've just got to admit it. She's got the dress sense of a slapper. Now, that is could be a very nice outfit, but not on her. It just doesn't suit her. She is too well upholstered for something like that. All right. And she is the Deputy Prime Minister. She has to be a little bit careful. Look, if she were a man, she'd also have to be a little bit careful. I remember how many people would make fun of John Prescott and his overflowing belly. So it's not just because she's a woman, although this writer in The Independent says, here's a little quiz to see if you're assessing Angela Rayner politically or personally. Did you ever hold a well-spoken male Tory cabinet minister to the same exacting standards? No, I thought as much. And that's not true. Yeah, she's just being, how would you put it, partial in her inverted snobbery. But I do want to talk about Angela Rayner's third home and the fuss it's caused, because it is important in British politics to see what's going on, just like it was important when Keir Starmer was borrowing, occupying, pretending, I don't know what, Lord Ali's flat in, Covent Garden, wherever it was. OK, so I'm going to talk about that and our attitude to it and why the Mail's outrage, although thoroughly manufactured, has some validity, and why the Independent's defence of her is a typical example of upper middle class snobbery in its own right. OK, I'm Granniopteryx. Please like this video. Well, yeah, click the like button. Go on, do it now. Click the like button, share the video and subscribe to my channel. I think YouTube are messing around with my channel a bit, but that's something else to talk about at another date. Right, and if you want to help me financially, that's lovely. If you can, don't strain yourself, but if you can, all the links whereby you might contribute to the ongoing of this channel, they're all there in the description. Right, let's talk about Angela Rayner and her property empire. All right, so here we have in the Telegraph, public foots Rayner's tax bill on Grace and Favour home. Yeah, that's slightly misleading in its own, because we're doing that for everyone. Tories accuse Deputy PM of staggering hypocrisy, and I'm on their side there, over property taxes following controversy over her £800,000 third home in Hove. Now, she's attracted some attention and is being accused of hypocrisy, as you see, because she bought a holiday home in Hove, which is a seaside town. The air is fresh and the views are pretty. And this pad would be, and that place is also in addition to her constituency home in Ashton-under-Lyne and her officially supplied apartment in central London, Admiralty House, I believe, or a flat in one of those buildings. Now, you see, the thing is that Rayner has a history of accusations about sort of skating along the margins of property dealing. For instance, and I can't vouch for any of this, so I accuse her of nothing at all, but she bought a house in Vicarage Road. It was a council house which she bought under the right to buy policy that the Conservatives brought in. And she bought this house in Vicarage Road, Stockport, in 2007. And then in 2010, she married Mark Rayner, from whence her name. Mr. Rayner lived in a house about a mile away in Lowndes Lane in Stockport. And that was, according to the electoral register, where Angela Rayner's son, Ryan, was registered. However, Miss Rayner still claimed that her house in Vicarage Road was her primary residence. And this is important because when she sold the Vicarage Road house, as a primary residence, she didn't have to pay capital gains tax on the profit she made from the sale. And she did. She made about £50,000 profit on it, because when she bought it, it was a council house. But then the area had gone a bit upmarket because people were buying their houses, their council houses. So she sold it for about £50,000 more, which in Ashton-under-Lyne was quite a bit of money. And she made profit from that sale, but didn't pay capital gains tax, because that was her primary residence. You don't pay capital gains on what you sell if you're going to be selling that to move somewhere else. It also, by the way, had implications for her voting registration, because saying you live where you don't is a criminal offence under electoral law. So if she lived in Lowndes Road and said she lived in Vicarage Road, that would have put her in a different place and could have been illegal. Now, as I said, I can't accuse her of sharp dealing. I can't, because I've had 3 sons and all of them have been 17 years old at some time or another. And there were many occasions when I would have been only too happy to live in another house a mile away from them. And perhaps that was exactly what Miss Rayner was doing. Mark Rayner was obviously a very understanding husband. So there you are. I'm not accusing her of sharp dealing or flouting electoral law, although I am suggesting that maybe she didn't want to be around her teenage son and lived in another home to avoid him. And then she sold the house, of course, and that was it. But now we're going to talk about her present arrangements. When you're elected as a member of Parliament, it's as a representative of a constituency, and for that reason, you're supposed to live there. So that you're living there, you experience the problems and the opportunities of that constituency and can speak for it in Parliament as a local person. However, if your constituency is at a distance from London, you're expected to find some accommodation in the London area so you can spend days attending to business in Parliament. Now, despite what some people think, there's plenty to do in Parliament. There are debates, of course, we see those televised, and votes, and we see that televised too, and MPs have to attend those, but those are the public things that we know about. There are also many committees that we don't see going on, and they're probably more important than all the debating chamber stuff, which is generally just theatre. The fact is that MPs have to have somewhere to live in London to go to work in the Houses of Parliament, and so they are given an allowance for that. In round figures, it's about £25,000 a year for renting a flat and covering the associated expenses. Or they can claim £190 a night for a hotel. So you see, if you're living a long way away, you'll have to have a flat in London or some sort of a permanent accommodation so you can get to bed, really, because there are lots of late night things going on in Parliament and they're not all parties. All right, and if you live sort of near to London, so you can come and go, but occasionally you're living too far to travel, if you have to attend a late night debate or an evening committee meeting, that sort of thing. So you're allowed to stay in a hotel overnight. That's when you're an ordinary MP. But when you become a minister, the whole thing ramps up, no doubt on the assumption that a minister has to be in London a lot more than an ordinary MP. You see, generally speaking, when you see debates in the House of Commons and it's on a Friday afternoon, you'll see hardly anybody there, and people say, oh, they all went away and they're not interested in this subject. They might not be able to do it because as a constituency MP, you might be in your constituency on Thursday and you might stay there till Monday or even Tuesday if there are things going on that you have to deal with there, because you are the representative of that constituency. So if you're a minister, there's just no way around it. You have to stay in London. And ministers get flats assigned to them by the state, free, gratis, and for nothing, as long as they're ministers. But even ministers have constituencies. Now, if you're more familiar with the American political system, you'd probably find this very strange, because even a minister, even the prime minister, has a constituency that he or she is supposed to take care of, which of course is a bit of a fiction, and the minister or the prime minister would have to employ staff to deputise for them in their constituencies. But the point is that Angela Rayner has a house in her constituency of Ashton-under-Lyne and would have to pay council tax on that property. Of course, as a primary property and in a low income area like Ashton-under-Lyne, the council tax would be relatively low. But if you own a second home, you pay double council tax. That's a Conservative idea, by the way, dreamt up by Michael Gove, one of the puppeteers behind the appointment of Rishi Sunak to the premiership, and therefore one of the architects of the Conservative Party's demise. The font of good ideas was Michael Gove, wasn't he? But I digress. Angela Rayner says that the place in Ashton-under-Lyne is her primary accommodation, although her neighbours say they hardly ever see her and have a lot of trouble even contacting her about issues like the trees in her garden blocking their light. Another neighbour, when asked, said she saw Rayner 2 weeks ago on a visit that lasted no longer than the weekend. Obviously, as a minister, most of Rayner's time would be spent in London in her second home, which would attract a double council tax, a la Michael Gove. But she doesn't pay a double tax as, being a minister, the British taxpayer foots the bill, including that double council tax. That being the case, Miss Rayner can afford to pay double council tax, which in her case would be somewhere between £4,000 and £5,000 a year, on her recently bought £800,000 holiday home in the seaside town of Hove. Now, Rayner isn't doing anything illegal. Her colleagues say she needs to be in Hove, which is nearer London, they say. It's 50 miles away. Nearer London than Ashton-under-Lyne, which is 200 miles away. But the fact is, she's supposed to be living in Ashton-under-Lyne and she's supposed to be representing the people there, which she self-evidently is not and does not. Still, it's not illegal. She's paying her taxes and she is as good a representation as any of the members of her party who make rules and lecture people on morality. That is, the morality of owning a second home when there's a housing crisis. You see, what Flick Everett is failing to address is not so much the fact that Angela Rayner has a second home, or a third home in a way, and not so much the fact that maybe Tory ministers have 2 or 3 homes and nobody's talking about it, but the fact that she lectures people on the morality of second homes. She's talking about the housing crisis and how poor people can't afford other, never mind second homes, primary homes, because rich people are doing them out of the property by buying up holiday homes or second pads or whatever. This is supposed to be a party of, looking after the lower income people. And yet her buying that holiday home in Hove is the sort of thing that brings the price of that home up to £800,000, which is not that much short of £1 million, and certainly well beyond the ability of most ordinary Hove, shop assistant and office workers to afford. That's why it's not the worst kind of snobbery. It's the knowledge that she is posing as something moral in a party that's supposed to stand for the morality of equality. Last year, Ms. Rayner earned the nickname Two Homes Rayner for dividing her time early in her marriage between two right-to-buy council properties, with claims that she rented out her home while she lived in the property of her then husband. When Labour came to power, she was involved in a row with David Lammy, who would get the use of Chevening, a mansion in Kent, which ultimately went to David Lammy. He won that round. It's the spirit of the law that she's breaking, if not the letter. And this is especially pertinent in Hove, where local people on low incomes certainly can't afford to buy because of holiday homes chewing up the market. So in order to redeem herself, you see here's these nice bedrooms. Again, I say this is a probably an estate agent's piece of set dressing, so you don't know if her home looks like this or not. But you do know it looks something like this. And these fairly modest houses that have been turned into flats could be used by local workers, except people like Angela Rayner, and I think Fatboy Slim lives in one of these as well. I mean, people with substantial incomes. Again, I don't mind them doing that. What I do mind is people like Angela Rayner pontificating about second homes. And I'm just thinking, there's a solution that she could redeem herself with. She's obviously socially conscious, so how about her handing over one of her properties, probably this beachfront place, to a migrant? Or perhaps a homeless veteran. In fact, that's even better. I'm sure a nice pad in Hove would go down a treat with a disabled soldier currently living in a shop doorway. All right, well, that's the rundown on Angela Rayner and her living accommodation. Till next time. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.